Hello, good afternoon all. This is Vishaka Shivaraman, TPO staff, and welcome to the October ITS committee meeting. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Margaret, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, Margaret. Yeah, hi, thank you. I couldn't see all the attendees. So let me go ahead and start this meeting today here. I would like to call to order all the attendees. We are going virtual today. And we do have an approval item, which is the meeting minutes. Do we go ahead and just approve it virtually with a vote here? Is there any questions or comments on the meeting minutes that I need to be aware of?
Can you remind me how many voting members we have?
We have, I think, 5. I need to see the list.
Okay.
But so the thing is, we are virtual here, but I think as per what I was told, we can still take questions or comments and then we can address them. So do we have any comments on the minutes? Did we have any questions on the meeting minutes from July?
Nope.
All right. I think I don't know if I need to call everybody for a roll call vote, but I think if there is no objection, I forgot to mention, we can take any public comments at this time. I do not have any emails or comments sent out to me earlier, but is there any attendee who would like to ask a question today? I do not see any raised hands. Do we have any questions from Priya? You don't see any questions in the chat either. I don't see any questions in the chat.
Yes, that's correct. I don't see any questions.
All right, so we can move on to the action items then. That would mean today we are going to be presenting the TIP transportation improvement amendments, which I know we are late in the time in the month, but it has already gone to the other committees, being CAC, TAC policy, BPAC, and it was approved by the TPO board yesterday with a unanimous vote. So I have Connor McDonald here, who is the TPO staff, and I also have Ed Alberton from FDOT, who's going to be presenting the ICM specific elements that are added to the TIP amendments for this month. So with that, I would let Connor go ahead and present his TIP amendments.
Perfect, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Can I get presenter rights?
Yes. All right. Do you have the presenter rights now?
I think so. Can you see my screen?
I cannot see. Yes, now I can.
Okay, perfect. So good morning, everyone. I'm Connor McDonald, the newest TPO staff member. I'm here to present the transportation improvement. I think there's a feedback. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, now we can.
No, I can't hear clearly. There seems to be feedback or something. I may be the only one.
Let me mute myself.
I hear feedback as well. I think it's okay now. Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Connor McDonald, the newest TPO staff member. I'm here to present the 14 amendments that involve 3 different projects. There's the downtown interchange, safety and operations adjustments, the Westward interchange reconstruction and preliminary phase, and finally, the traffic congestion management technology, also known as integrated corridor management. Ed Alberton from FDOT will enhance or elaborate on the ICM projects after my presentation. So there's 14 amendments requested by the Florida Department of Transportation to add funds to the year 2022. These amendments came from the governor's announcement on September 13th for funding for Tampa projects. The three project categories equivalent to roughly $258 million. Within that, the downtown interchange is roughly $154 million for 3 amendments. The West Shore interchange reconstruction preliminary phase is 5 amendments for roughly $80 million. And the traffic congestion management technology is 6 amendments for roughly $24 million. So first, the downtown interchange safety and operations adjustments. Most of us who've driven this downtown interchange know its problems well. This includes a long congestion of lining up to get to the I-4 exit towards Orlando. The congestion can sometimes go back all the way to Hillsborough Avenue. Drivers often lane dive into the exit at the last possible second to avoid waiting in the congested line. This line also prohibits access to local exits, especially Florida, Nebraska, and occasionally even MLK. The downtown interchange is also cited in the long-range transportation plan as a priority for the region and part of the high injury network. There are 3 proposed changes to alleviate these problems. The red being westbound I-4 to northbound I-275, the yellow being westbound I-4 to southbound I-275, and the blue being an additional 1 lane from southbound I-275 to eastbound I-4. These quick fix safety and operations adjustments will reduce the previously stated lane weaving and speeding, the congestion and lining up at the I-4 exit, and improve access to the local exits. FDOT is measuring that the downtown interchange will reduce deaths and serious injuries on I-275 near I-4 by nearly half. This means that the downtown interchange can prevent 1 to 2 fatal crashes and roughly 220 injury crashes annually. Since there are roughly 200 fatal crashes in Hillsborough County annually, this can mean a 1% drop in that measure. FDOT is also measuring a 14% traffic reduction on local streets. So continuing on that topic of local streets, the downtown interchange is also planned to improve connectivity and safety on the local street network below. There is a proposed trail system that will connect the Tampa Heights Greenway project to Ybor and Encore development. Oh, did my screen change? Can you still see me and see the screen?
I
Okay,
see your
perfect.
full screen.
Okay, perfect. There's a proposed trail system that will connect the Tampa Heights Greenway to the Ybor and Encore development. Further, these improvements will complete streets under the interstate to connect these communities. The TIP amendments are also intended to release some issues on local street network below, like drivers driving too fast on and off the interstate ramps and difficulty in seeing at night. Some mitigation strategies include reduced lane widths and having a high emphasis on crosswalk markings. This slide shows the typical street sections for 14th and 15th streets. While FDOT is responsible for the work on 14th Street, the City of Tampa has plans to improve 15th Street through the Green Spine project. These changes include sidewalks moving from 5 to 6 feet and lanes being narrowed. The first amendment in this set is amended from right-of-way acquisition to right-of-way and utilities, preliminary engineering, environmental care, and design build for a total of $26 million. This section is westbound I-4 to northbound I-275. The next amendment is an addition of $60 million for westbound I-4 to southbound I-275. And the third amendment is the downtown interchange project is adding $66 million for the I-275 southbound off-ramp to I-4. These 3 amendments make up for roughly $154 million. So the next group of amendments is the West Shore interchange reconstruction preliminary phase. These 5 projects are preliminary projects that make up for 1 out of 4 phases of the West Shore interchange. The interchange has been a top regional priority for many years, and the changes are intended to reduce congestion and weaving at the intersection of State Road 60 and I-275. They will also complement the Howard Franklin Bridge reconstruction. The first project, westbound State Road 60, will construct 1 general purpose, not a toll lane, along westbound State Road 60 from the George Bean Parkway to Courtney Campbell Causeway. This project has a total of around $36 million for utilities, preliminary engineering, environmental care, and the design build. The next project will extend a new seawall and construct an adjacent shared use path along the north side of the I-275 causeway. This project has a total of around $37 million. The next project is Cyprus at Lasalle Street. These two low-volume roads are near business parks. They'll be widened to enhance connectivity to two off-ramps and one on-ramp to the Westward Tampa International Interchange. The project cost is an estimated $3.6 million. Amendment 13 is West Kennedy Boulevard at West Kennedy Boulevard. It will allow the construction of additional left and right turn lanes, one from eastbound Kennedy to eastbound Kennedy, the other from westbound Kennedy to westbound Kennedy. FDOT believes these will also facilitate traffic and mobility during future interstate construction, and the project has a total of nearly $2 million. The final Westward Interchange Amendment is a project to add a right turn lane from eastbound Boy Scout Boulevard to southbound Lois Avenue. This project has a cost of around $527,000. Finally, the Integrated Corridor Management, or the Traffic Congestion Management technology, will allow a traffic control management center to manage congestion among several key corridors. These corridors include Nebraska Avenue, Tampa Street or Florida Avenue, Hillsborough Avenue, Dr. MLK Jr. Boulevard, Boy Scout Boulevard, and Kennedy Boulevard. These systems include advanced detection monitoring systems, dynamic message signs, and closed circuit television. They have the goal of making work zones safer and improving travel time reliability. Ultimately, they will deploy technology to allow engineers to see what's happening with traffic in real time. And as stated before, Ed Albritton from FDOT will elaborate on these technologies. So the first of these amendments is at roughly $5 million for the design and build on Florida Avenue or Tampa Street. The next is roughly $6 million for Nebraska Avenue from Kennedy Boulevard to Bears Avenue. Amendment number 17 is $4 million for the design build of ITS systems on Kennedy Boulevard from West Memorial Highway to Ashley Drive. The fourth is Amendment 18 for funding, including $3.8 million of ITS systems on Dr. MLK. The fifth is for $3.3 million for ITS systems on Hillsborough Avenue. And finally, the sixth ICM project, and amendment number 20, is $1.6 million for ITS systems on Boy Scout Boulevard from Airport Service Road to Del Mabry Highway. As part of our public participation pilot, we're aiming to ensure that the public has had the opportunity to voice their concerns and support before they come before the committees and board. One of our outreach projects came from the Long Range Transportation Plan and Outreach Survey that received over 5,200 responses. In this survey, respondents were given 4 options regarding a downtown interchange reconstruction. While the no-build score was higher in downtown areas and the full rebuild rating was higher in ex-urban areas, the safety and traffic quick fix option had the highest star rating overall and supported or unopposed by most zip codes. As part of the pilot, we also asked jurisdictions what public outreach they've done. FDOT in this case has done significant outreach regarding the downtown interchange since 2017. This has involved a series of community and neighborhood events, community working groups, and neighborhood and stakeholder presentations. As part of the pilot outreach, the TPO has also done significant outreach for these projects. This has included a press release to 30 media outlets and over 100 neighborhood associations and community groups. There's also a web page that has been posted. Further, there's been social media outreach that can be seen on the left, and 6 of these 3 signs on the right posted along project corridors. So there have been some clerical corrections since the first presentation. This has involved the description of the first West Shore Interchange project from changing from 1 express lane to 1 general purpose lane. There are no toll lanes in these amendments. These changes have also included a correction from left to right turn lane from eastbound Kennedy to eastbound Kennedy Boulevard. And finally, the project limits for Hillsborough Avenue ICM project have changed from I-275 to Veterans Expressway. So the TAC and CAC had some suggestions for us. These include leading pedestrian intervals at intersections with additional turn lanes, accommodating cyclists to Cypress Point Park and Courtney Campbell Causeway, noise walls at Robles Park, landscaping at noise walls, narrow lanes and wider sidewalks on 14th Street in coordination with the City of Tampa, traffic signal prioritization for buses on ICM corridors to ensure that new fences do not impede the walk and bike access opportunities, and to refer to the downtown interchange as part of the high injury network rather than a Vision Zero corridor. With that, I'd also like to provide Mary Lou Godfrey's information. She's the project manager for the Tampa Bay Next project, and my contact information as well. With that, I'd like to open the floor for any comments or questions.
Seeing no questions, I think we should let Ed take over his presentation. Ed, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ed Albritton. I'm the District 7 ITS project manager. Connor stole a lot of my thunder. It was a great presentation. He had a lot. He's much better at PowerPoint presentations than I am. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. And I'll go ahead and apologize in advance for anyone that caught my last presentation. This one is largely the same. We've got just a little more clarity on some of what we were trying to do. So you're going to recognize most of this. This slide here is just basically TB Next. If you're familiar with it, you're also going to recognize this. We've also got a couple of big interchange projects in the southeast portion of the district, Big Bend and I-75 and MLK and I-75, both DDIs. Pointing out with this slide that, you know, a good portion of our network, especially our interstate network, is already, you know, being addressed through these projects, but to just address these alone wouldn't fully address the traffic issue that we have in the region. Go ahead, next slide. This is just trying to illustrate, you know, a broad strokes view of what ICM is, trying to prioritize all modes of traffic to include, you know, transit, hopefully one day rail as well. Next slide. Once again, a very broad strokes slide, but you know, just to give you an idea of what we're trying to accomplish with these systems that we're deploying, is we clearly want to reduce delay, travel time reliability, which we, you know, that's essentially what we're going to be able to deliver at best, is a reliable commute. We're not going to be able to really save anybody any time on a roadway network that is a fair amount above capacity, good portions of the day. And of course, the ultimate goal always here at the department is to improve safety. Next slide. And in this one, I'll spend a little bit of time on, because like I said, Connor did a pretty good job of giving you an idea of what we're planning on deploying on these corridors, and did a good job of describing the limits. So I'll just dive into some of the systems that we're going to be deploying, starting with basically continuations of what we've already been doing. We're filling in CCTV camera coverage holes if we have portions of these corridors that we can't see from our traffic management centers, and we want to fill in those gaps. Same thing with these Bluetooth readers, travel time measuring devices. We already have a fair amount of those deployed within the department, so we're just increasing you know, that deployment as well. We're adding blank out signs as a part of this deployment, and right now that's a part of other efforts in the region. We're doing that as a part of a project I4 Frame that I'm a part of, but those are more diversion route adherence signs, if you will. There's very little functionality to them. It's basically a right arrow that comes up, or it's not on. It's only active when the diversion route is active. What we're exploring, if the budget will allow it, is trying to make these almost like small dynamic message signs with a little more functionality. I don't believe they would function 24/7 like a normal interstate dynamic message sign, or even arterial dynamic message sign, but I would like to be able to get a little more functionality at these strategically important intersections. We also will be upgrading the detection at each intersection or at the important intersections, and upgrading controllers to allow us to get to what they call automated traffic signal performance measures. ATSPM is the mouthful of acronym that you'll hear referred to. Essentially what that means is we're going to deploy a system that will automatically collect and convert high resolution traffic controller data into actionable performance measures. It's going to allow us a look into coordination patterns at a depth that's just not possible with legacy systems. That's about the simplest way I could put that. And we're also going to be putting in some roadside units, which is essentially the infrastructure side of the vehicle infrastructure communication and connected vehicle technology, so that they'll be mounted on our devices communicating to onboard units or emulated onboard units, if you have any familiarity with those. Next slide. And this one is just a listing of some of the things I just talked about. I didn't mention fiber optic communications. It is going to be a small portion of this, but that's another one of those things where we're just kind of filling in gaps. That's another effort that's been underway for quite some time. So we're just trying to make sure that where it's financially feasible, that's the communication methodology we want to go with. I don't think I missed anything else on there. Next slide, please. This slide is illustrative to show you basically a scenario of an origin destination with TIA being the origin, downtown being the destination, and supposed to show you that any given day it might be the quickest way to get from the origin to the destination. And you can probably derive this information from Google Maps undoubtedly and let the smartphone talk to you, but the system we want does more than that. The system we want leverages these signals and these facilities to facilitate that trip. It doesn't just tell you which way it happens to be the fastest at that moment. It tries to get involved in that trip and optimize it. Next slide. Some of the other projects that, as I mentioned, we're kind of filling in gaps. These are the two big ones that are kind of the biggest sort of connected vehicle deployments for sure, but they're not vastly different from what we're trying with the ICM as well. So I-4 frame is already moving along, has been for quite some time now. We're moving up on the final plans for the District 7 portion, and the City of Tampa ATMS has been going for even longer than that. Next slide. Just some overall numbers of what we're looking at for this deployment as far as the different systems that I referenced. And you'll see some of them may seem surprisingly low, like we only need that few new controllers, but once again we've already got a couple initiatives that are a bit ahead of us, so we're just trying to fill in those spaces. Next slide. And this one always kind of throws people off. We're trying to still decide whether or not, so we don't have to take this system. They can be designed to essentially be fully automated at the at the endpoint, where they're basically using a traffic model and real-time information from the field to essentially to predict these traffic patterns and change the timings, in concert with that. District 5 is already a little bit ahead of us in that effort. They've already developed, it's called a decision support system, is essentially, and that's the easiest way to describe it. They already have one that's DOT owned. There's a very good chance that we're just going to follow in that wake and purchase that ourselves, or whatever the license for it, however we do it. You don't have to. You could stop at just deploying these subsystems and have the true corridor integration management, if you will, happen just through human intervention, humans paying attention to different subsystems and manually affecting whatever changes take place. But the end game ultimately would be to build it to be a fully automated system, of course, with human oversight. But like I said, if we do include that as a part of this effort, and that's just coming down to sort of cost and risk and trying to mitigate both, then it'll likely be the District 5 one that is already out there and is a little bit less risky for us. Next slide. These are some of our dates. As you can see, I just had a meeting about this morning, and I'll likely have a conversation again before I leave today. We're planned to do the advertisement on Monday, and then you'll see we shortlist on December 6th. Technical proposals are on March 30th, May 16th for price proposals, and then June 13th is our anticipated contract award. Next slide. And that might be it for me. Yeah, I don't have a question slide, but I will take any questions that the audience may have.
Thank you, Ed, for the presentation. Is there any questions that we can address at this time? We can either take questions to Connor or Ed.
Hey, Vishaka, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi, this is Jeff Sims from EPC.
Sure, Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, this is for Ed, and I'm just curious on the map. Maybe you can bring it up. The map where you showed the potential alternate routes from the airport to downtown. Is that like hypotheticals, or I'm just curious as why on certain days of the week different routes would be recommended?
That's totally hypothetical. And to point out that
not this one, Connor, it's the last map which shows the alternate routes.
I just saw it.
Anyway, go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, this one.
Well, I mean, oftentimes, that's not necessarily just a recurring traffic decision. That's often incident driven. So I think that's what, and I didn't really create the slide, so I'm kind of trying to read the tea leaves a little bit, but I think that's what they're trying to highlight, that given what's going on any given day, any given community, you might need to deviate from what is typical for you. If that is your priority, if travel time is what's most important to you.
Okay, that's what I figured. It was just the days of the week were throwing me off. They were listed there like it was an expectation or something. Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I had the similar question too. So thanks for clarifying that. And also for the City of Tampa ATMS project, I had a question. Is FDOT paying for that for the ICM projects?
Did we pay for the City of Tampa? Was that what you?
Uh-huh.
I know at least a good portion of the funding was FDOT money. I don't know if it was. Once again, my day-to-day activities are predominantly on the interstate, so I don't attend those progress meetings for the ATMS. So I'm not, unfortunately, completely plugged into it.
And I also had another question. You had mentioned initially some of the ICM measures. In one of your first slides, the Bluetooth sensors, the fiber optics, the ATSPM, and all those things. Have they already been deployed somewhere? Sorry if I missed that. You told me District 5 is ahead, but have you already installed some of these to see that? Are they proven techniques, or how did we come up with this systems in place?
Proven might be a little bit strong. District 5 does have roadside units deployed. They are working. The issue is we have to get an FCC license for each one of these units that needs to operate, because the device has to operate in a specific spectrum on the RF spectrum. So some of that has changed. Some of the conditions on the ground for that has changed. The FCC changed the ruling for what a portion of the band was going to be set aside for. Mm-hmm. So, long story short, yes, and that's why District 5 already has this decision support system that I mentioned, because now they are having issues getting that full-blown model version to work, which is why, we're reluctant to try to blaze our own trail. I don't really want software development to be a part of a design build procurement. I don't really know of a way to mitigate risk in that scenario. So, and the issues are relatively minor and not catastrophic for the system. Maybe one of the applications is struggling with accuracy because of a particular detector was chosen or something along those lines. So they're massaging it. They're not having any major hurdles, but but it's not widely deployed. So I would be reluctant to say it's proven. But yeah, we're not out on our own here, and my intent is as much as we can to follow in the wake that they've created.
Hello, Ed. This is Eric Hill with Metro Plan Orlando. Pachika, I did submit a question in the chat. I don't know if it showed up.
Sorry, I did not check the chat yet.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll ask it. Don't, that's okay. So, Ed, as part of the ICM on the local roadways, the cameras, the surveillance system, they being shared with City of Tampa and Hillsborough County TMCs, so they also have access to this information.
Yes, sir. That connection actually exists today. They don't have control. DOT maintains that they can't move the cameras, but they can see the feeds. I'm pretty sure they can see them now. But yeah, and they will for this as well. And you know, there'll need to be a fair amount of TMC to TMC coordination. You know, a lot of things get generated off of even just a timing pattern change that people don't realize. Citizen complaints get generated, commissioners get involved. Having that information to everybody that's a part of that process can make them, you're not going to make the complaints go away, but it's nice to have a good answer for that when it comes in, when you see, oh, you know, 6 complaints came in on this diversion route because we happened to push some extra traffic that way, you'll know, oh, well, that's because we had a major incident that shut down 275 and we had to, you know, use that capacity to mitigate the incident.
And when these changes occur, are they also being broadcast to City of Tampa, law enforcement, as well as Sheriff's Office?
Yeah, we're going to have a whole list of stakeholders that'll be a part of the notifications. Just kind of like we already do something similar to that on the interstates, depending on the level of the incident that's occurred.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, is there any
Yeah,
other
this
questions?
is Margaret. I just
Hey,
had a
Margaret.
question.
Sure, Mark.
Thanks, Ed. It's good to see you.
You too, Maggie.
Could you go back to the schedule? 'Cause I was just on a call for the downtown interchange and looking at all the detours. And okay, so we're gonna, the anticipated award for the contract is 2022. Do you have an estimated construction time?
No, but my highly paid consultant probably does. No, not off the top of my head. Although I'm so glad you asked that question, Mark, because I did neglect mentioning that we are discussing about possibly trying to, and I don't know if we do it through, you know, incentivizing it, but trying to coerce the contractor to finish the strategically important portions first. Meaning, so DTI is going under construction. We would like the portion of MLK and Hillsborough that connect to I-4 east of that to be completed first, just so we can leverage that in relation to what's happening down in the interchange.
Right, because there are 2 sequences that will divert traffic and use Hillsborough and MLK.
Yes,
To
design
handle
build
outbound
procurement
and eastbound.
complicates that a little bit because now you're talking about either some sort of interim acceptance or going through possibly 2 burn-in processes, which, you know, they've already chosen the days. I seriously doubt that they calculated, you know, 60 days of burn-in, which would be what we were talking about if we were sticking to those numbers. So we're trying to work the wrinkles out of it essentially. But we realize that it would be ideal if we could affect that. And so that's what we're attempting to do.
Okay, could we go back to the map that shows the ICM corridors?
Yes, ma'am. This map here.
Yeah, that's
We
a
cannot
great
see your
one.
screen.
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, so early in the project, we divert traffic, we being all collective government. Okay, so Nebraska Nebraska has detours on it a couple different times. And then MLK will be necessary just at the interchange to bring people up and then back down on MLK during a couple of those. So
Yes, we discussed both of the east-west connectors, Hillsborough MLK between 275 and I-4, and then also the north-south connectors of Florida, Nebraska down to into the interchange.
yeah, this
Trying
is,
to get those done first.
yeah. And it'll serve Safe Trip perfectly. So get them in. Not that I care about that at all and see what happens, but I know that Nick on and our TMC as well as, you know, the whole team. And I'm sure, you know, the county is going to enjoy having the availability of the information. And as well as the regional data platform. So this is great. Thank you so much. It's exciting to see that this is moving forward. So
It is, and a little bit terrifying.
shh, it's going to be fine.
So these are the only projects which came for the amendment this time, right? This ICM projects are.
Yes, originally we had a segment of US 41 over by the port that we had also rolled into this initiative, and that one was rejected. So it got tailored down to this.
All right, thanks for clarifying. Are there any questions? Anything else we can take in at this time? If not, Connor, can you give me back the control? I can move back to the next presentation, which is the tentative work program. Hi, Megan. Do you want me to be the presenter or do you want me to give, sorry, Susan, do you want me to give you the presenter rights? I can't hear you. I think you're on mute. Susan, sorry, we can't hear you. Can you check your mic settings, please? No. Okay, I think I heard some sound.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Now, yes, we can.
Okay.
Do you want me to make you the presenter?
Sure, that's fine.
It's a lot of
Already
slides.
presented, sure.
Oh, you've already made her the presenter?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Suzanne Monk with the Florida Department of Transportation, District 7. I'm the Hillsborough TPO Government Liaison. Today I'm going to be talking about the tentative 5-year work program for fiscal year 2023 to fiscal year 2027. In this particular presentation, the projects that are going to be discussed are funded from July 1st of 2022 to June 30th of 2027. FDOT's work program is a 5-year financial plan that includes the planning of all of the projects, which includes the phases for transportation planning, intelligence transportation, design, right-of-way acquisition, construction activities. So currently we're in fiscal year 22, and it's the first year it's adopted, but we're in the process of updating for next year. So every year on June 30th, the current year of the work program will end. And then on July 1st, the year 2 becomes the new current year. And at that time, the 5th year is added to the program and the funding is allocated to the next phases of projects programmed in the prior 4 years. The new projects are added into the 5th year based on the the Florida Transportation Plan goals, statewide programs, and local priorities. This is where we're at currently. We're actually working with the tentative work program. This presentation is going to outline the first 5 years of the work program and any new projects in the fifth year. Really, we're really only going to talk about the projects in the new 5th year. So I just want to let you guys know that if you don't hear me mention a project, doesn't mean that nothing has changed on it if I don't bring it up. Really, we talk about the projects that we have worked diligently to get programmed into fiscal year 27. So the proposed work program is submitted to the legislator later this year and will be reviewed, and then it will be provided to the governor for review and signature. After the governor signs the work program, the first year is included in the state budget and the work program is considered adopted at that time. Basically, this is the order of which we look at funding projects. We start looking at preserving existing programs. So we're going to look at adding projects that don't have, if we have design programmed and we don't have construction programmed, it's unfunded at the time, we'll look at delivering those unfunded phases first. And then we will go through our work program update cycle, and that includes looking at all the cost estimates and bringing the cost estimates up to date for the projects that are programmed. And then lastly, we add new projects that are brought to our, that are on the MPO or the TPO's priority list. Different projects include safety and security. We want to preserve our system, multimodal enhancements, operational improvements, and capacity improvements. And of course, we're programming based on MPO priorities, regional priorities, CIS and FDOT priorities as well. So basically everything that I'm going to give you on projects is going to be new phases of existing projects or select projects of interest. It might be a new PD&E project, a new design project, right-of-way construction, design build, or any capital grants. But if you don't hear me bring up a project that was discussed previously, doesn't mean anything has changed. We're just discussing new items right now. So the first project that got programmed was Hillsborough TPO's #1 priority for the MPO transportation planning. Planning funds were added in fiscal year 27. That's the TPO's first priority on their list. Also, George Road from Dana Shores to Town and Country Greenway was added. We went ahead, let's see if I can get this right. This project was supposed to be for design in 25. And at the MPO request, we have removed the design and added a corridor study in fiscal year 25 to just review a few things before we program the design. Next up, we have Fowler Avenue from 56th Street to I-75. We're actually we added a corridor study in fiscal year 23 at the request of the MPO. It was a priority to look at bike ped improvements. Another Hillsborough TPO priority is Bush Boulevard from North Mabry Highway to North Nebraska Avenue. We went ahead and advanced right-of-way from fiscal year 25 to 23, and we're able to add construction in 27. We went ahead and funded at the request of the TPO to fully fund the construction in fiscal year 27. The next project is another TPO priority, US 92 from west of McIntosh Road to east of McIntosh Road. We added design in fiscal year 23. Next is Adamo Drive at 26th Street. We added right-of-way in fiscal year 24 and construction in 26. The next one is another, obviously, Hillsborough TPO. We're giving you all the priorities first. Rio Street from Gray Street to Cyprus Street. We were able, due to ARPA funding, which was stimulus money from the federal government, we were able to add the construction of this project in fiscal year 23. Next up, we have resurfacing projects. So for this slide, particularly these 3 projects, we were actually able to fund PE in fiscal year 23 and the construction of these projects in fiscal year 25. The department actually only funds resurfacing projects in the 3rd year of their work program. So first up is MLK from Wheeler Court to Forbes Road. Next is US 301 from Manatee County Line to Sun City Center. And last on this slide, US 301 from Balm Road to Witt Road. Another resurfacing slide. So the first 3 projects, again, we were able to fund in fiscal year 23 and construction in 25. And that includes Fowler Avenue from Bruce B. Downs Boulevard to River Hills Drive, Causeway Boulevard from US 301 to 50th Street, and Kennedy Boulevard from west of South Hoover Boulevard to Church Avenue. And then the last project on the slide, Adamo Drive from west of North 34th Street to east of North 34th Street. We were able to add design in fiscal year 25 and construction in 27. And this is the last slide for resurfacing, but these are a little bit different. We were able to, for these 3 projects, we were able to add the design for these projects in fiscal year 23 and the construction in 25. However, these 3 projects are also going to include intersection improvements. So for these projects, State Road 60 from Buckingham Place to Lithia Pinecrest Road, North Park Road from Baker Street to I-4, and Down Mabry Highway from Gandy Boulevard to Sevilla Street. Next up, we had rail projects that we were able to get programmed. We were able to add rail safety construction in fiscal year 23 at State Road 60 at rail crossing 624572-B, which is east of Clarence Gordon Jr. Road, mouthful. And then we were actually able to advance rail safety construction from fiscal year 25 to 23 at Kennedy Boulevard at Willow Avenue Railroad Crossing. And our last slide of what we were able to program was the multimodal projects. Tampa International Airport we were able to program about construction in fiscal year 23 so that they can replace the airside shuttle cars and system. And then our last project is the Hillsborough County TPO priority for HART bus replacements, and they get this allocation every year for capital grants. So we were able to give them the funding in fiscal year 27. Overall, the Hillsborough County TPO, we were able to fund $1.1 billion in projects just for Hillsborough County alone. When it comes to intelligence transportation, I know that the screen says 3.52 million, but it's kind of hard to capture exactly all of the ITS that's programmed because some of the ITS is not just a standalone project. So depending upon the work mix, I think it's 60%, the majority of the work. So if it's 60% resurfacing, the work mix is going to come up as resurfacing. If it's 60%, capacity, that's how it's going to show. So please just take into consideration that there is more ITS funding. It's just built into other projects. And then also we just got, as Ed and Connor discussed, we got the ICM projects, which is huge. And then we also have the I-4 frame project that is going on right now too. So that's pretty big for the ITS program. Just a couple reminders, let you guys know, October 25th through the 29th is the online public hearing. We have a website that you guys can visit. Public comments on the website are due by November 12th. We encourage you, if you have any comments you want to submit, please visit our website. We also have on October 28th, the District 7's work program open house from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Later on, once this moves a little bit further into the winter and spring, the legislator and FTC will review the tentative work program, and then the work program will be adopted July 1st of 2022. I just want to thank you guys and let you know that, we'd really appreciate if you have any public comments that you want. Again, they're due to this website by November 12th. But if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Suzanne, if you could just pop back to the other, like the allocations on the money.
Yeah, hold on. Let me go.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I just want to get it.
That one. Yeah, that's the slide. Perfect.
Okay.
I remember years ago when I attended a MPO meeting, the question came up about complete streets and the money spent there. And it is exactly in line with what you just mentioned about ITS. ITS looks kind of low, but the reality is it's sort of blended into the other projects. Complete streets money is similar. So whenever you have the bike ped, it blends with your complete streets work. And so,
yes,
anyway.
ma'am. We had to discuss that last night at the bike ped because when I was putting this together, I actually talked to Karen Corman, the work program administrator, and I was like, this can't be right. So I wanted to make sure I knew the background. So I know, with bike ped, it looks low too, but we're building in bike ped improvements throughout the different projects. So there is funding on there. We just wish there was a different way that we could capture what we're actually spending on these projects so that we can relay that back to you guys.
Yeah, because it does, like resurfacing. I mean, having $230 million being spent on resurfacing, but it may be resurfaced, but it probably, many of those, it will be evaluated for possibly reallocating some of that existing space, and through pavement markings, you're going to add in additional bicycle facilities.
Absolutely, yes. And like I said, I think there was like 4 projects, maybe 3, we're actually able to incorporate into those projects the intersection improvements. So we'll be able to do that in one fell swoop. So that, resurfacing is majority of that. So the intersection improvements are actually going to be showing under the resurfacing money. So it's a little confusing and tricky if you don't know.
Yeah, the only way visually you could maybe do that, and I'm not saying that you need to, it's just an idea. Like if it had a bit of a matrix that was like going out to the side to say, oh, well, this includes new bicycle facilities, or, this project includes these components. I'm not suggesting you go through that, but just something to consider, because it was probably 3 or 4 years ago, I was at a meeting and that question came up, so. Good work, thank you.
Hey, Suzanne, thanks for the presentation. I also have a question. I also have a question here. So when you say the capacity projects and the interstate projects, does it also include the ramps which are connected to it, which connects to the local roadways? And then if that includes those pedestrian crossings, because most of the times the ramp projects these days also include the bike lanes and the complete streets elements into it. So you are not able to distinguish this. This is just based on the FPN number totals, right? So a bulk of projects.
Yes, ma'am. It's based off of the work mix that FDOT assigns to it, which is based off of the 60%. It's like whatever the work mix is based off the 60% of majority of what the work is that's going on in it. So it's kind of hard to capture unless it's coded. I mean, even if we coded it, it's just so hard. That's why, I mean, we were talking at the bike ped last night. Unless it says bike ped or sidewalk, it's not going to show up under the bike ped component. So it's a little tricky, but yeah, it's hard to, with the ramps and things like that, I think that they fall under capacity.
Okay, because we also try to make that categorization based on our LRTP funding buckets. So it always becomes usually we'll have to communicate back with you and coordinate on that when it comes down to that level. Oh, hey, this project says this one, but and so when you say 60% of the project, is it 60% of the work or 60% of the money?
60% of the work
Okay.
is what
And
I
because of
understand. I can
Okay.
double check, Vishaka, just to make sure, but I'm pretty sure it's 60% of the work.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I was also curious about this, how it has been defined in the past. So there is no clear definition by what you say. It usually spills over to the next category.
Yeah, it's hard because we'd really have to go in, and I'm sure Margaret knows because she's worked here. You have to look at the PPR to see exactly what components are happening on each project. Last night I tried to look up the Kennedy project, the resurfacing, to see if we were doing anything additional. So it's very hard and intricate. So I'm not sure how we can capture that. So, but you know, hopefully we can work something out to get it to where we can give you the more accurate numbers in the future.
When it comes to the TIP process, when we produce a TIP document, I think that's when we will come back to you with questions on more clear definitions of what this project involves.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you. And any other questions from the committee members or anybody else?
Hey, Suzanne, this is Jeff Sims at the Environmental Protection Commission. Thanks for the presentation. I certainly see where a lot of those are in need, especially some of the resurfacing. Makes me wonder if we can wait as long as FY 25, 26 for some of those, but I'm glad to see they're on the agenda. My question, and I realize this is an ITS meeting, so this is more of an environmental question, so I understand it's a specific project. On the aviation for the shuttle replacement at the airport, do you know if they're looking to do electric shuttles, or are they going to be doing combustion ones? I know it's very specific, but that area is one that we really target to try to reduce emissions. And if not, I would like to put it in recommendation that they consider that.
Okay, so you were asking if the shuttle is going to be replaced with combustion, or what was the other one?
Or electric. The preferred
Okay.
would be all electric.
Okay, yeah, let me reach out to Ray Clark, and I can find that out for you. And Vishaka, could you help me with Jeff's email and I can get him that information?
Sure, I can coordinate with Jeff and get back to, I can take your question and answer back to him.
Okay, yeah.
And sorry, I know that was a very targeted question, but it just
No, it's
crossed my mind.
fine. I just don't want to give you the wrong answer. So he's the aviation coordinator for the district, and he would more than likely know. So I will have him, if he doesn't know, I'll have him reach out and we'll figure it out and get you an answer back though.
No problem. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And Suzanne, one more thing, the rail projects, do they also include the rail safety, or are they just reconstruction, rail lines? What is rail?
One of them, hold on. They're both rail safety.
Safety, so I think.
I'm not sure if we're doing dynamic envelopes and replacing lines, but I can check on that for you.
Yeah, because those are always the airport projects, the rail and the seaport, we just go with the other, just go with what that bulk of the projects is instead of going into the details of that.
Absolutely. I'll get that information for you.
I see it's also safety, so I believe it's probably like changing the rail crossing or upgrading it, any of those projects. That's what I'm assuming.
I think it's upgrading the rail crossing, and we have the new dynamic railroad envelope. So they have to comply with that bulletin. So it's probably bringing that up to the correct code.
Gotcha. Any other questions from any committee members? Thank you, Susan. I think we don't have any other comments. We will get we'll get to the next presentation, and I will talk to you later. Hey, Lara, are you there?
Hello, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I just see the two of us right now.
Can you see the presentation?
No,
No,
it says I've been made the presenter.
I don't. Have you been made the presenter?
Yes, but you have the presentation, correct?
I have the presentation. I think Priya is giving me the screen back. Okay, now I have the presentation up for you.
Okay, and if you don't mind advancing, that would be great.
I will do that, sure. Thank you.
All right. Well,
Can you
thank
please,
you
start
so
by
much.
stating,
Oh, go ahead. What did you say?
sorry, can you please start by saying the name for your record? Sorry, I'm.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you for having me here to present today. My name is Laura Bauk. I'm a senior transportation engineer with Metroplan Orlando over here in Central Florida. Today I'm going to be presenting on some of the work we've been doing in coordination with our GPC, Kittleson, to explore using connected vehicle data to inform and enhance some of the work that we're doing with our signal retiming program. Johnny Wong participates on behalf of the Hillsborough TPO with the regional TISMO working group that Eric Hill at Metroplan heads up. And so he saw this presentation back in August, as you can see, and thought it might be a good one for you guys to see. So I hope you enjoy. A little bit about our retiming program before I get started. Metroplan Orlando has been funding signal retiming projects in our through-county planning area since about 2007. And since 2009, we've also been completing a before and after analysis, looking at a series of metrics along each of the retimed corridors and completing a cost-benefit analysis of the program annually. Over the last year or so, we've had the opportunity to work with some connected vehicle data as a part of that before and after analysis, and that's what I'm going to be focusing on today. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. So the purpose of this presentation, and I apologize, I'm working from home today, and I live very close to the Sanford airport, so you may hear some air traffic over me. But the purpose of this presentation is to introduce a new data source that we're using now for our signal retiming evaluations, and also to discuss some of the development of performance measures that reflect the goals of signal retiming projects. We are also continuing to explore the suitability of using this data for some other project needs in our region. Next slide, please. So historically, our signal retiming program has mostly focused on corridor travel time reliability, and intersection delay. That's been working out pretty well for us. Have had consistently pretty good BC ratios year over year. And usually our maintaining agencies have been choosing corridors where they want to reduce that end-to-end travel time. But in recent years, we've been getting more questions from our various committee members, board members, maintaining agencies about how the signal retiming can support or hinder efforts to improve safety and minimize speeding, among some other considerations. Previously, we were limited in what we could evaluate based on the type of data that we were using to measure the impacts of the signal retiming. But with this new connected vehicle data that we've been using, it allows us to calculate some different metrics and evaluate some other potential goals for our retiming project. Next slide, please. So when Metroplan Orlando started evaluating the signal retiming program back in 2009, we would collect data by driving a car up and down the corridor during the peak period, doing some floating car runs. This was a pretty laborious task and only allowed for the collection of about 4 to 8 data points for each of the retimed corridors. And around 2011, when Bluetooth data became more readily available, we switched over to start using available Bluetooth devices to record travel time. And that has been the same method we've been using for about 7 years now. But then last year, in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, we all know there were some changes in work from home percentages and other changes to travel patterns. And we ended up having some issues with being able to collect our Bluetooth data consistently before and after each of the signal timing projects that were implemented for that year of the program. So that led us to start looking at some other potential data sources that had been collected before those changes in travel patterns had occurred. And that's how we ended up coming across the connected vehicle data and got to the subsequent analysis that I'm presenting today. Next slide, please. So we can go ahead and just get into the data itself. Next slide, please. So the connected vehicle data that we've been using is from a company called Wejo. They've been making the rounds through Florida, so some of you may have been in contact with them. Wejo gets their data from General Motors vehicles with model years 2015 or later. And this data reports the location, speed, and direction that the vehicles are moving in about every 3 seconds. The data represents about 3% of the total vehicles in our Metro Plan Orlando region. And so if you're familiar with the idea of those floating car runs that I talked about a couple slides ago, the level of detail in the Wejo data, or the sample size in the Wejo data, is similar to that, where we're able to see where each vehicle is pretty precisely. Next slide, please. So on this slide, at the bottom of the slide, you can see that it shows a few of the journeys that have been extracted from some of the Wejo data. Each color of the dots corresponds to a separate trip. So looking at those orange dots, you can see that the orange trip begins sort of on the right side of the slide. And then it comes to a stop at the intersection towards the middle of the slide. You can see a couple of orange dots really close together at the stop bar where it stopped, and then the dot eventually moves through the intersection and exit off to the left side of the slide. So as this diagram shows, there's a really high level of granularity with this data, and you can really see what each vehicle is doing as it travels through the corridor. This has allowed us to look at some additional metrics, which I'll talk about shortly. We also think this data may be useful for some other projects beyond signal retiming evaluation. We're looking at some of those use cases now, and we're also hopeful that starting to work with this data now will help us prepare well for when connected vehicle data becomes more common. Next slide, please. One thing that's important to us at Metro Plan Orlando, I know also at the Hillsborough TPO, has been evaluating how much the data is representative of the region and looking at equity considerations. So we took a look at where these vehicles were starting most of their trips compared to our identified environmental justice focus areas. And we found that those EJ areas are underrepresented by this data. As compared to overall trips throughout the region. So we've had to be mindful of that as we embarked on using this data set and using it for signal retiming analysis and other potential projects using the data set. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we looked at right away when we started using the data was comparing the Wejo data to the Bluetooth data that we've traditionally used, and specifically looking at whether we can measure the same sorts of things with Wejo that we could with the Bluetooth data. So in this figure, you can see the Bluetooth travel times are shown in the blue bars, and then the Wejo travel times are shown in the red bars. The gray diamonds show the average travel times by week. And so one thing you'll notice is that for the Wejo, the red bars, there are several diamonds for each red bar as compared to the Bluetooth data in blue, which only has one diamond. And that occurs because we are able to purchase the Wejo data that covers a longer period of time. Typically, we buy a month at a time, as compared to the Bluetooth data where we were typically only collecting data over a single week. So that the N notation at the bottom of each of the bars corresponds to the number of samples collected. And so you can also see that the Bluetooth data, there are more samples that are collected than for the Wejo data, but we're able to sort of get more samples by virtue of the fact that we collect the data a month at a time for Wejo. So overall, in general, the patterns that we saw between the Wejo data and the Bluetooth data were similar, although the travel times themselves are maybe a little bit different, and we think a lot of that difference is primarily due to differences in the methodology. Next slide, please. From a high level perspective, we found that the travel times calculated by the Bluetooth data versus the Wejo data were within about 30 seconds of each other. And we also found that if the Bluetooth data was showing a reduction in travel times for the corridor, the Wejo data typically also showed a reduction in travel times for the corridor. So we're feeling pretty good about the usability of this Wejo data. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. So now I'm just going to go through the additional performance measures that we've been able to calculate using this new data source. As I noted earlier, historically, we focus on evaluating the 3 metrics along that top row on the slide: the end-to-end travel time, the segment travel time, and the delay at intersections. And we're still able to calculate all of those metrics using the WeGeo data, but due to the increased granularity, we're also able to look at some additional metrics like signal progression, the number of stops and slowdowns, and the travel speed along the corridor. Each of those metrics has some limitations, but as we look at each of the metrics together, we're able to get a pretty good picture regarding the benefits of a signal retiming project along a corridor. And each of these metrics might also be applicable to different projects depending on what the goal of the retiming is for a particular corridor. Thank you for going to the next slide. So the first metric we're going to look at is the number of stops and slowdowns along a corridor. And this particular image shows one individual trip. Along the y-axis, it shows how long a vehicle, or how fast rather, a vehicle is moving, and along the x-axis, it shows how far along in the journey it is from a time perspective. So you can see that this vehicle starts out going about 45 miles an hour. It increases speed a little bit, and then you can see where it dips down to about 15 miles an hour there at about 50 seconds. And anytime within WeGeo, anytime the vehicle slows down under about 20 miles an hour, it's counted as a slowdown. And anytime it slows down under 5 miles an hour, it counts as a stop. So we're able to do this type of analysis for every vehicle along a corridor. And then once that is calculated for each vehicle, we're able to look at some average statistics like how many times along a corridor a vehicle is likely to slow down or stop before and after the retiming. Next slide. So this data can be really helpful in terms of a before and after comparison because it allows us to see how often, on average, vehicles are likely to hit a green light along a corridor. Next slide, please. So if you click on the slide, it should have, or is this just a PDF? Okay, this is just a PDF, I think.
Is a link here? Should I? There's a link here.
If it'll allow you to hit the, not the link, it should play though if it's in the presentation. But it's okay.
It's a PDF, so I don't think it can present itself now.
Don't worry about it. But another thing that we can do with the data is seeing where queuing is occurring. And if we had the video, it would show this queue sort of build and get back basically to around where Livingston Street is. One of the issues that we'd been having using our Bluetooth methodology was where we would set the straps down for the Bluetooth. Sometimes we didn't shut them far enough back from an intersection to be able to get a good feel for where the queue is actually ending. And so this methodology helps up a little bit more. The data is helpful because it allows us to see approximately what the queue is doing at a specific intersection. And I say approximately because, again, we're only looking at about a 3% sample size of all the trips. And so there may be a tendency to underestimate the queue length. But we're still overall able to get a better idea of how the queue is developing. We just may not be able to make sort of specific queue length calculations from before and after perspective. Next slide, please. Next slide. You can move on, yeah, thank you. So the next metric we're gonna look at is signal progression, and looking more at the idea of the stops and slowdowns. We can look at the stops and slowdowns at specific signals. So looking at this diagram from the left, we'll have three separate intersections here. So on the left side of the diagram, you can see a vehicle that sort of starts out going at 50 miles an hour and then ends up coming to a stop at that intersection. In the middle example, there's a vehicle that slows down at the intersection, but then is able to continue going through without coming to a complete stop. And then on the far right, it shows a vehicle that's able to fully go through the intersection without slowing down. And the numbers that are shown alongside each dot just show the speed that the vehicle's going at that time. Next slide, please. So for this particular metric, we can then aggregate all the information for a corridor to get an idea of what percentage of vehicles stop, slow down, or continue through each of the signals along the corridor. And so this figure here shows a setup with the before data shown in the circles, and then you can see the placeholders for where we could put the calculated data at each intersection in the after condition. Next slide, please. Next slide. And then similar to the previous metric, we can also look at the progression of individual vehicles and create the time-space diagram that is shown here. So this diagram has time on the x-axis, and then on the y-axis, it shows each of the intersections that the vehicles are proceeding through. You can see in this example that there's a lot of red and horizontal movement at that State Road 438 intersection in the middle of the graphic. So the travel time is getting pretty spread out at that intersection. This type of information can be particularly helpful for our maintaining agencies and for the retiming consultants prior to the retiming analysis to help them with defining the goals for the retiming for a particular corridor. Next slide, please. And then another way we can look at the data is to look at the portion of time that vehicles are spending moving at different speeds along the corridor. So in this example, the orange line shows the average portion of time that vehicles on this corridor spend going at a particular speed. For this example, the vehicles are spending about 13% of their travel time going between 45 and 50 miles an hour, which is above the posted speed limit of 45 miles an hour. So if one of the goals for this retiming were to be speed management, we could use this type of evaluation to see how successful the retiming was. And from that speed management perspective, we would want to see that orange line move over to the left a bit in the after condition so that a greater percentage of vehicles are moving at or below the posted speed. Next slide, please. And then next slide. And then the last metric I'm going to talk about is corridor utilization, where we can basically look at the distance that particular trips are moving along a corridor. In this particular graphics, it's showing 3 types of trips. We have the green dot where the trips coming in along State Road 408 and then exiting at 438. We have the blue dot sort of in the middle of the screen where the vehicles are traveling between State Road 438 and Clarkona-Curry Road. And then the orange dots show vehicles that are making the trip along that full corridor. And this type of information can be helpful in understanding how signals might be coordinated together, and if there's a particular type of trip that's predominant along a corridor that we want to correct for. This information can also be helpful for our maintaining agencies and retiming consultants to have prior to retiming for developing a new retiming scheme. Next slide. And next slide. And with that, I'm done, but I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have on the call.
Hey, thank you, Laura, for the presentation.
Absolutely.
It was really good information for me. I'll probably let the committee members ask any questions if they have. If not, I can ask.
Okay.
Are there any questions that we can take now? I don't see any in the chat.
Of course I have a question.
Okay.
This is great. I mean, having all this data is really amazing, and it's pretty exciting because being a traffic engineer for a few decades, I've always seen the value of using signal timing in order to control speed and to help manage driver behavior. I really like the slide, not the time-space diagram one, but then I think your point is well taken where you're talking about towards the right, it had the average speeds were kind of rising up. And so people are above the speed limit, 45, 55. Mm-hmm. I've talked to consultants who do signal timing in our region about like program stops, you know, how do you control it, and also to use shorter cycle lengths. So I'm trying to figure out where my question is really going. What kind of cycle lengths were they using? Do you know that? Do you have that?
It's different for every corridor. For the one in the example, I don't know off the top of my head, but I can find out for you. But it really just depends on the jurisdiction, honestly, what the cycle lengths are that they want to use. Yeah.
Well, it's good to have additional data, and I applaud you about looking at travel time reliability and not just travel time, because travel time, of course, you know, get rid of all your delay, but it also allows people to speed. So
right, exactly.
I'm sorry, I had an emergency off to the side for a little bit. Did you have safety information in here too? But this is really just focused on using a different data source and how we can use the WEJO data in order to evaluate it and take a look at the corridors from a different perspective, right?
Yeah, that's really the focus here. Yeah, having this new data set, we've always been looking at sort of travel time reduction, travel time reliability, and intersection delay. But just the granularity of this data has allowed us to look at some different metrics that we're kind of excited about, and try to get some of our maintaining agencies excited about too. So.
Yeah, because there's so much data available within every vehicle. I know someone was just on the call the other day saying that, yes, we launched the first space shuttle with less technology than what we have in our car today. It's
amazing.
So it's pretty amazing. Thank you for bringing this to us.
Oh, you're absolutely welcome. And for everyone that's on the call today, we have some memos, tech memos that we created that go into more depth than my presentation. So if anyone's interested, you can reach out to Vishaka or me, and I'll be happy to share those with you.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
So Lara, my question was, is this data hosted by the consultant right now? How do you get that data?
So WEJO is particular about how their data is used and shared, and basically, this is my understanding, and Nick's not here to correct me, but whoever purchases the data, really they're the only one who's supposed to use it. And so with the data that we have, we can do as many sort of summaries, we can use it however we would like to for analysis, but couldn't say share it. And so since the GPC did a lot of this work, what we ended up doing was just had them purchase the data for this particular exploratory analysis. And we're sort of working through what we'll do sort of for future years.
So if you need on particular corridors, if you're looking for one type of data, that's all you need. You need to purchase that according to your need and corridor basis.
Well, we purchased the data for the entire 3-county region for a month at a time, and once we have that data, we can really summarize it. However, so if let's say you were within the region and you knew you wanted some specific type of data for a corridor, we could pull that down and then share that with you. We just can't share raw data. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So you're able to share the reports for other jurisdictions according to their requirements. Okay.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm still digesting it and seeing what other uses we might have with this.
It's a lot, and feel free to follow up after, because it is a lot. I know that I just blurted out.
I might need some clarity on the queuing analysis. What you said was and was not helpful.
Well, for the queuing, what we're finding to be helpful for us right now is more just getting almost a qualitative feel for where the queue is ending. Because like I mentioned previously, we used to, set out the Bluetooth devices where we thought the queues would end, and we were finding that cars were queuing far, far beyond where we had our devices. And so since we were able to see the data with this type of granularity, we can see how far back the queue goes. And Kittleson's working now on sort of working through the data to get better specificity, but as of right now, as of reporting time, we're not using the data to calculate specific queue lengths, like 95%.
So this is vehicles moving from north to south, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Do we have any other questions that we need to take at this time? And Lara, if anybody wants your information or WEJO's information, we can share them also.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you. This is a really good tool that you brought to us.
All right, thank you for having me.
Can we move on to the next presentation, which will be me giving a quick demo on the state of the system report. So if you're ready, I can go with this presentation. Good afternoon. This is Vishaka Shivaraman, TPO staff. And today I'm going to be here to present a status update on the state of the system report, what we have been producing. This report, if you all know that this is something which we update once every 2 years. And this time we did after a 3-year update, which includes data, most of the data through end of 2020. And what we are doing this time is instead of updating it as a report form, we have a consultant, Urban SDK, who's produced a tool for us, who will be and we will be hosting all the data, the performance measures in that, which is a dynamic platform, which has a dashboard version. I will be going through some of the slides and showing the screenshot, and also I can pull up the link and show you the demo of the website. So with that being said, I will move to the introduction. Like I said, the state of the system report tracks the performance of the system, and it tracks also the data trends over the years. By doing so, we can evaluate the investment spent for each program by each jurisdiction and helps to evaluate towards a safer and efficient transportation system. And like you all know, the 6 measures that are federally required are safety, roadway level of service, transit, non-motorized, which includes the bike ped trails and the shared use paths, and also the infrastructure conditions for payments and bridges, and the emissions. Some of the data sources what we used for measuring the state of the system report are as given here. For safety, we use the state signal flow analytics. We also use the Plan Hillsborough Vision Zero report. For roadway LOS, we use the Florida DOT's and the AACS data. We also use the HERE data for the travel time. For the non-motorized, we use the bike lanes. We reported the total number of bike lanes, sidewalk, and bike lanes in the county. For the infrastructure, like I mentioned before, the data came from bridge and pavement from FDOT and individual jurisdictions based on their payment characteristics. And the transit came from NTD, the National Transit Database, and also some of the HART provided us the data. For emissions, we use the FDOT data and some of the data from Plan Hillsborough. And the website, currently we have it hosted as a dashboard, but I believe that Urban SDK is moving from their dashboard format to a studio format where it's more interactive and users are able to create their own reports, update their data, upload their data, produce their data and print it into the forms they want. It includes 3 versions of data. One is a map, one is a dashboard format, and one is more like a data CSV format that you will be able to download and use for your needs. So like I mentioned before, the safety trends, we reported the average annual fatalities and the rates, the average annual serious injuries and the serious injury rates, the non-motorized fatalities and the serious injury rates, which are the bike and the ped crashes. We also looked at the number of crashes by year. The first 3 averages are the rolling averages, and the number by year is by each individual year as coming out of the signal flow data. These are some of the charts that have been produced by the tool. And as you can see here, the average annual fatalities, which is the map towards which is a chart towards the very top left. You can see that the rolling averages of the annual fatalities have been increasing a little bit. And also the non-motorized serious injuries have come down in the last few years. The serious injuries have also come down in the last few years. So that's something to look at the data trends. For the safety trends map, actually here is what Lara had something similar to present on. What you see here is the slide where you can see the safety crashes. And if you notice here that there is a time scrubber added to the bottom of the website, and you can see how the crashes change over the years. So by doing so, it helps us to track any before and after safety measures that have been implemented and how the safety trends changes over the years. You can see either progressively or you can see at particular intersections. The next one is a roadway level of service, whereby we report the daily delay hours, the vehicle miles traveled, and the mean travel time to work based on the FDOT data. For the roadway level of service, we reported the travel time and the vehicle miles traveled. The map what you see here is the total number of miles traveled on all interstates based on the data provided by FDOT. So this is for the year 2018 where we have the vehicle miles traveled. For the transit performance, as I had mentioned before, the data we received was from the National Transit Database. We reported the transit ridership, the passenger trips as a rolling average, the average annual trip for 2020, which was reported from the NTD. We also looked at the passenger per revenue miles and revenue hour for the three categories, namely bus, streetcar, and demand response. Also, we looked at the average fleet age in years, which is a measure of the transit asset management, and we will be able to assess if the system is in good condition. And here are some of the charts that have been produced depending for the transit data, which are the passengers per revenue mile. If you notice in the chart, it has the three categories here: bus, streetcar, and demand response, and also the passengers per revenue hour and the average fleet age in years. The non-motorized travel, as you can see in the map here, it includes the bike lanes, which are countywide, region-wide. We have the bike lanes marked in, sidewalks marked in white. We also try to add the layer for the schools, hospitals, and grocery stores. The schools we receive from the school district, the hospitals and the grocery stores we receive from data from the property appraiser's office, and thereby this helps us to assess the accessibility to some of these places and to see how people are able to access and what is the shortest distance to these places of interest. This is a very important data which helps us to for the equity analysis for the region. The next set of data are the infrastructure conditions. And as I had mentioned, we included the payment conditions. The map you see here, I know it's tight and it's very crowded, but we received the data from all the jurisdictions and we try to group them as good, fair, and good, fair, medium, and poor. And if you notice here that most of the roads in the Hillsborough County region, about 50% are in a very good condition and only 5% are in poor condition. Likewise, for bridges, a majority of the bridges are in good condition. For emissions from automobiles, we used the data from FDOT and also we used the data from NASA's subset. This is one of the sources of the data we used for the carbon dioxide emissions. And you can see here that I know it's a bit dated, it's a little bit dated, but you can see that this emissions has been increasing in the last few years. We are trying to explore other data sources and see if we can directly track the emissions coming out based on the indicators which are installed in various places across the region. So that will be something, if we are able to get the data from the monitors, we'll be trying to incorporate that into this tool. And like I said here, this is just a status update. We are in the process of finalizing the document. And once it's done, it will be hosted on a website and other jurisdictions and agencies will have access to it. They can pull the reports, and if there is anything that they would like to see, we can produce reports in addition to it. I can also quickly show you. Sorry. I was thinking I can show you pull up the website and show you the tool. But the information is listed here. I will have a more updated website for the tool. And when I get that, I can share it with you all if you have any other interest, and we can use it. I can go over it once again. And also, if any partner agencies need any additional information, I can get that also for you. With that, I will take any questions here at this time. Is there any questions that I need to take at this time? I don't think I can hear anyone, and I don't see any questions in the chat.
I don't see anything either.
Okay.
But it's exciting to have this much information available and to be able to evaluate it. Thanks.
Thank you. Sorry, I cannot see the two windows with the. I can only see my screen, so I guess
No,
I need
Vishaka, we don't have any comments, so
okay.
no hand raised, so we are good.
Okay. With this, if there's anything else, we can probably move on to the next topic, which is the committee's interest. Let me try to bring up my agenda here and reshare the screen. At this time, we can move on to the next session, which is any business, old and new, that we need to address here. I knew I had spoken to Brian Gentry a week ago, and I would like Brian if he could put in a few words about the C platform, the ATMS workshop that the Hillsborough County is doing. Brian, would you like to just update the committee about that?
Sure. We had a meeting with surrounding stakeholders regarding a potential RFP we want to put out for a new ATMS. And so we just started with a task work order with our Arcadis through our CCNA contract with for professional engineering services with Iteris. And we're starting our systems engineering analysis on that for some technical and requirements that so we met with regional stakeholders to discuss some of their projects and how the different projects may impact each other. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to give a presentation in the near future, maybe more holistically on our program altogether, and that would just be a portion of it.
And Brian, I think the ICM projects which were brought up today for the amendments are also included in that list of ATMS updates, right? When we discussed it last week, I remember seeing those projects.
Yeah, we're taking into account, and we've been meeting with DOT on that so that we can coordinate specific projects and make sure that we're making the appropriate accommodations for each of the corridors.
Is there anything else that we need to address for new and old business? Anybody else? Jeff, is there anything you need to bring, or Margaret, is there anything else we need to let the committee know? Hearing none, I think I'm good. I'm done with my presentations and the topics, and I would like to adjourn the meeting for today. Thank you all for participating, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Vishaka.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vishaka.
Bye-bye. See you. Yeah, reach out to me if you have any questions.
Sure will. Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.